Yo, I'm Bob, into Star Wars, happen to be totally blind since birth, talking about Season 1, Episode 8 of The Acolyte on Disney+. Plus. This one premiered on July 16th in 2024, filming this a day after it aired. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, you might want to watch it or you're going to get spoiled. That being said, jumping right in, and you were warned. I like the length of this episode. We get, 48 or so minutes, possibly a little less if you want to count the end credits there. But I really liked the episode from start to finish. Now, last week's, I liked it a bit less. I mean, I liked what they were doing, but this one had me riveted from start to finish. I mean, I get why last week's was a thing, and I know why we had to see it. Um, but right off the bat, we're right back in the present, and we have Osha, and she is wearing she's wearing the helmet, and right away she starts to convulse. And right when I saw this one for the first time, with the audio description, of course, because that's how I see things, and it was talking about how she was convulsing. I was thinking to myself, okay, this kind of reminds me of a mask that we saw in Shadow of the Sith. Certain dark side artifacts can possess people. There are dark side vergences as well as light side vergences. But I mean, it wasn't anything like that. It just really made me think of that book. It also kind of creeped me out a bit when Kamir was trying to struggle and pull that helmet off of her. He really had to do some work in order to fight past what was going on with him. And when his eyes turned black there, well, I see some fans saying that she might have been doing something, uh, possibly subconsciously, to sway him. But upon two or so rewatches, I tend to wonder if someone else could have been hindering him just a bit, so Osha could receive whatever vision that the helmet was giving her. And I like the vision too. When he's able to pull the helmet off of her, she says, "Well, I saw May, and she had a lightsaber in her hand, but she wasn't using it." Yeah, she sees Soul being killed. That's what she says she sees. And when we hear her talking about this, when I heard it for the first time, I was thinking, okay, this is very similar to what Anakin's going through in Revenge of the Sith. He thinks he can fix things, but of course he ultimately ends up doing a lot more harm than good. So, yeah, I mean, right away, I think we probably all knew that there was a lot more to this, and she's just running back to Brendok. She wants to try and stop what's going to happen. And Chimere, why do I keep calling him that? It's because of my stupid screen reader, that's why. Well, he loves this. I think he's being a bit flirty when he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to come with you, and we'll have a little bit of a competition, and we'll see who gets to her first. So I just kind of like how he's a bit smug here. He knows, I think, what's probably going to happen. I mean, he suspects what's going to go down because I'm sure that May has already told him exactly what happened. I mean, these two have been together for, I would say, quite a while. So he probably knows the score. He probably knows exactly what Soul did. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to kind of get the lay of the land. Going to see what happens here. This is probably going to go my way. So I think he's having a very good day, as Sith tend to do, right before they head off. So Soul and May, well, they have a bit of a talk, but then she breaks free from her restraints. And, I mean, she does bring up some awesome points as he's talking about that vergence on Brendok. She lets him know, well, so that justifies you four coming down and unaliving everybody that I knew. And, he's still so sure that he did what was best for the both of them. And, as he's, I would say, distracted, she just stuns him, and then we get that ship chase. That was pretty fun. It didn't last that long, but I did like that little bit of starship action that we got. And of course, before she leaves and says, "I'll see you in hell, Jedi," that of course reminded me of Han from Empire Strikes Back when he was on Hoth, and he kind of got a bit cute with one of the technicians there. So whenever this crops up in Star Wars every once in a blue moon, it tends to make me chuckle a little bit. Immediately thought of Han from Empire. Right before she left, and they had that little chase. But of course, it didn't end well because Basil pulled some wires. I guess he was thinking he was, possibly trying to stop these two from fighting. Don't know why he did what he did. I guess to try and slow this stuff down so there'd be less conflict. He's an interesting character, I would say. But yeah, they both wind up crashing on Brendok, and then we get that scene on Coruscant where you have Vernestra, and she's having to meet with Senator Rancourt. He's played by David Harewood. And when I heard him speak for the first time, I couldn't quite place the voice, but it sounded very familiar to me, of course. I have seen David in Supergirl, of course, playing Martian Manhunter, and, the real Hank Henshaw, as well as Cyborg Superman. So, yeah, I really liked that they allowed him to be in Star Wars as this character. And he really lays it all out for her. And, yeah, he does not like Jedi at all. But I think a lot of what he has to say is pretty valid. But at the same time, it is definitely anti-Jedi sentiment. And part of me is kind of wondering if he might be, be lobbied by a certain someone here. I tend to wonder if this guy, if someone might not be putting a few credits in his pockets, perhaps funding a few campaigns for him. We'll get into that later on, maybe. So this guy, he's reported her, as he put it, her lack of transparency to the Chancellor. He thinks the Jedi have entirely too much power. They're not able to control their emotions, and one of these days, he thinks one of them's going to snap. And, I like all the things he's telling her. I mean, I like some Jedi. I like quite a few Jedi. But, there are those who they don't really have a handle on their emotions. She seems like she does. I'm thinking of, everyone's favorite chosen one there. But, even though he is, I would say, more than a bit of a scumbag, he does present some valid points. And I would like to know more about this personal vendetta that he has with them. Because, apparently these two, I would say they could possibly have a history. There's just so much that we don't know about this particular time period. And, well, it's probably going to be revealed in a comic or something. I don't know. Hopefully it'll be revealed in some of the books. Who knows? But yeah, now, there's even more heat coming down on Vernestra here, right when they finish their conversation. And his little, snarky, "May the Force be with you" as he leaves. I like that, too. So as Chimera and Osha are getting ready to head off world and to Brendok, they have this this bit of a conversation, and she sees him as, I would say, somewhat honorable. I don't know if I could use that word or not, but I mean, she's thinking that he's going to follow through with what he says he's going to do. I mean, they're going to go, they're going to try to get to May, and she says, "Well, I kind of see you as somewhat fair. You kept your part of the deal with my sister, so I'd like to think you'll keep it with me." And then they fly off, and we get this bit in the audio description, and right when they describe a spindly hand reaching out to grab the rock wall of the cave, and they describe a shadowy figure cloaked with a ghastly elongated head stepping into view. Of course, I immediately thought of this guy because, well, I own the Plagueis action figure. I have for quite a few years now. And I know what an elongated head, well, feels like because of this guy's head. So, yeah, all we get is a cameo. But it raises, I would say, pretty good amount of questions. I see some folks online, they think that Plagueis is Chimere's master. And I like that theory quite a bit. I do believe that he could very well be training this guy. I don't think things are going to go the way that he wants them to, though. I tend to think that there probably is still some good in Chimere. And of course, we're going to have to get to that point where Plagueis is going to be training a young Palpatine in this timeline. So I don't think things are going to end well for Chimere or Osha, because if you got Plagueis doing what he's doing in the shadows, no matter what timeline, I think there's going to be tragedy involved. I don't know how long the show's going to last. Who knows? We might not even get a season 2. But yeah, this is probably not going to end well for these two characters as they head off to Brendok. I was hoping that we would have gotten to see him at the end of the episode. Just a little bit more of this guy. But that is all we get. I feel like, I mean, it's a cool cameo, and hopefully they're setting stuff up with him. But part of me was like, oh, come on, that's all we get? Are we just gonna... Did you just put that in there for a bunch of reaction videos and for people to lose their stuff over this guy? I mean, I certainly did, because he's one of my favorite bad guys. I love the book by James Luceno. I absolutely love audiobook narrator Daniel Davis and his portrayal of Darth Plagueis in terms of what he does, the voice of the character. If he shows up in the show, I mean, yeah, they could go all sorts of ways with the vocal performance for Plagueis, but I love Daniel Davis and what he brings to the character, because Plagueis, as Higo Damask, he's a lot of things. I mean, he's not just a Sith. He's a well-known financial, political influencer in the expanded universe timeline, anyway. His public persona is just as scary as his Sith persona. I mean, he's a big mover and shaker in the Star Wars galaxy. He runs Damask Holdings. He is doing whatever he can in order to bring about the fall of the Republic. He does a lot of lobbyist stuff in the expanded universe. I mean, he loves to have his hands in whatever he can get him in. I think one of the things he really liked to do is playing politics. So when we talked about Senator Rancourt a few minutes ago, I was thinking, as I rewatched this second or third time, I wonder if a certain Mune is possibly funding some of this guy's campaigns. Although this guy could have very good intentions, you know, Rancor could, but I don't know if Mr. Damask here is as influential as he was in the expanded universe timeline. I tend to wonder just how much influencing he's doing with all of his money and a lot of things. Hopefully he's still out and about and doing some things in public. I don't know, though. This is uncharted territory with this character. He just showed up, and I'm not really sure what they're going to do next. As for this planet here, since I'm rereading Darth Plagueis, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last video, probably not, but this planet that they're on, the unknown planet that Osha and Chimera are on, I tend to think it might be Baldimnik, because there's a lot of cortosis on Baldimnik, and when we begin the Darth Plagueis novel, that's where he and Tenebris are. They're on Baldimnik, and they're actually in a cortosis mine. So it's kind of interesting that it could be Baldimnik. I tend to think it is, but who knows? Might not be. I tend to think it is, because Higo is on. He's right there on that planet, and well, there you go. Then you have Vernestra getting involved, because they find out that Soul's transmitter is on, so she heads to Brendok with that team of Jedi Knights. And when this happened, I was thinking to myself, all right, so is this going to be Vernestra's swan song? Is this going to be the last time we see her? I think my heart got to beating pretty fast as I saw this during season, possibly series finale night. And if there hadn't been any audio description, there's this one scene. It's a pretty long scene where you've got Chimera splitting up from Osha, and you have Soul looking for May, and you have Chimera eventually finding Soul, and he's got the helmet on, and he says, "Thank you for leading her to me. We make a great team." And I'm like, yeah, he's definitely eyeing Osha, and I feel like quite a few fans called it right away. Osha's going to be the Acolyte at the end of the show. I tend to do a lot more observing than that. I was hoping that would happen, but I was open to who the heck knows. But I like that they're going here, and it's not a Star Wars finale if I guess if you don't have a massive lightsaber duel. So you've got these two starting to go at it, and I like how Chimera uses his blade singular, and then he splits it into his Shoto and his lightsaber. So he's wielding both blades, and then he puts them back together again. There's this one instance where he throws both of them, and they're kind of boomeranging around. Soul is, of course, able to evade them, and there's some very, very close quarters combat as well without lightsabers. I think Soul is kicking him a few times, but I like how Chimera is throwing his sabers. We see a lot of that in various Star Wars video games. We have seen that over the years. Jedi, no, they don't throw their weapons. They don't. They shouldn't throw away their weapons. But that's kind of how Sith differ, I think. Sith don't give a crap. They just they'll throw their weapons at you if they think they can impale you with them. They don't follow Jedi rules. It's one of my favorite bits in the fight. And then you have Osha and May, and they finally meet up. And you have that moment where May is actually the one to tell Osha, No, I didn't kill our mother. Soul was responsible for killing our mother. And this is what ultimately sends Osha over the edge. And I was expecting, I was kind of expecting Chimera to reveal it, but I love May doing it a lot more because, it just feels right. It's coming from family. And even though these two haven't seen each other in years, Osha still loves her sister, I believe. And this hurts, I think, so much more than if it were to come from Chimera. I like that. I like that May is the one to break the news to Osha, and then they get in this big fight with no sabers, no knives, just fists and feet. And there's this one point in the fight that I like. They're both doing the same kick at the same time. I tend to really wish that there could be even more audio description to this fight. There's just so little time to describe all of the moves that are being done, all of the the various punches and kicks that are thrown. It must have been some fight. They do their absolute best with these audio descriptions. But I think if I could see, I would definitely be pausing this thing and be like, oh yeah, that was a cool punch. Oh, that's a cool kick right there. Oh, hey, that's a neat chop. Stuff like that. I would be dissecting these fights even more because I think there's some of my favorite parts of Star Wars where you have lightsaber duels and you also have lightsaber-less close quarters combat. Love the stuff in this franchise. And then, of course, you've got the cavalry arriving. And one of my favorite bits in the episode is when Soul, he thinks that the day is going to be saved. And he's like, oh, yeah, now you're going to really pay for what you've done. And Chimera's like, oh, no, they're not here for me. I actually thought at one point that Chimera might possibly bite the dust when you had the last few seconds of the saber duel and then you had Soul doing that final thrust, that final chop, but no, he just chopped the end of the saber hilt off, so he couldn't use his weapon. Yeah, this guy is, of course, gonna live to fight another day. You have May coming in after Chimera is defeated, and she's trying to subdue Soul. She is tempted to take him down. You have Chimera saying what tons of other Sith in both new timeline and expanded universe timelines have said before. Give in to your anger. If you strike him down, your journey will be complete. And May, she's just done with this. She's like, nah, we need to, I want this guy to face justice. I want him to go before the Senate. I want him to confess what he's done to the Republic. That's the kind of justice that I want. And, even here, Soul still says, well, no, I did the right thing. I was protecting you both. And she's just not having any of that. He does tell her about how they are the same person. He tells her about how there's a virgins on this planet, how he's not sure how their mom did it, but she did manage to create life. I tend to wonder if she might have had a bit of help with that. Now that we've seen the Honorable Hugo Damask, I don't know, maybe she knew what to do herself, but I like that he might have had a bit of a hand in this as well. And you have Osha coming up after May throws Soul's saber away. She grabs it, and that Kyber crystal is exposed. And you get May getting Soul to confess that he unalived their mom. And Osha was right there. She heard it, and that's pretty much all she wrote for Soul. And of course, he's still trying to justify why he did it. He's he says he did it to protect her, and Osha's just not wanting to listen to him anymore. And there's this really chilling tone that Amandla goes with when, you know, the first time she says stop talking. And I guess I should have known what was about to happen then. You know, but then he keeps going and he says, well, you know, I didn't want them to send you away. I felt like you could have what you always wanted. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I did all these things because I love. And then she starts choking him. And I definitely was reminded of that scene in Revenge of the Sith where you have Padme trying to get Anakin to come back from the brink, you know, and she's begging him to go away with her, telling him that, you know, she loves him and that she wants him to come back to himself. But here you have Osha, and she's just choking the life out of Soul, and you know she's not using a weapon to do it either. Well, I mean she is. I mean it's a forced choke, but at the same time, Soul is not putting up a fight. He doesn't want to hurt her even now, even though he is. He's done. He's losing his life, and I'm not sure because I can't read subtitles, but at one point as he is meeting his end, I think he says to her, "It's okay." And so yeah, that's what happens to him. And then you have the bleeding of Soul's kyber crystal, and this is something I first read about in Ahsoka, I believe. It's also in the Darth Vader comic. So, yeah, I mean, in the other timeline, in the older expanded universe timeline, you had your Sith basically, you know, getting the synthetic red saber crystals. But here, if you want a red saber, if you want to dominate the kyber crystal, if you want to make it subservient to you, you pour all of your rage, all of your hate, all of your grief into the crystal, and this is what is called bleeding your kyber crystal. So you have Osha here; she's got that lightsaber, and as Soul is dying, I mean, she is just beside herself with, you know, rage, grief, all those negative emotions, and. So I believe we actually got to see our first kyber crystal bleeding in live action. Oh boy. I really like that scene a lot. And when it comes to, you know, how a Sith gets their red saber, I do like that a lot because, you know, they're not just, you know, gathering up a red crystal. They are dominating this crystal with the dark side. They are you know, making it their own, pouring all of their darkness into it. And, you know, then of course that lightsaber henceforth, as far as we know, is going to be red. Unless, you know, someone decides to change it back. Which, I mean, that can be done too. But, yeah, right when Osha reignites the saber, she starts going after Chimere. And I do think, you know, before this happens, we do get to see the crystal. I think it's starting to bleed as she's choking the life out of Soul. But as she starts taking swings at him, and she's even more angry, even more in her new dark side element, that's when we actually get to see the blade going from blue to red. And I've only seen this thing 3 times. Going on 4. I'm going to watch it with dinner tonight. It's July 17th, as I said, as I'm filming this. But yeah, we get that. And then we get that moment where Vernestra comes out of the ship and she senses that presence. And right when she says, you're alive. Then you have Chimere. He's like, oh, that's my cutest skidoo. And he pops on that Cortosis helmet. Because, yeah, this is indeed Vernestra's former pupil. And I really like that they went this way. If we get a season 2, I'd love to see more of this. But yeah, he's got to hightail it out of there because the Sith secrets are in jeopardy. So he knows there's not much time. He's got to get Osha, and he's got to go. One bit that kind of surprised me was that he decided to let May live. Now, I can see why he did this, because these two are, well, I'd say pretty much a dyad in the Force. And I think that, for selfish Sith reasons, he thinks they should be studied. If Plagueis is his master, and I tend to think that he is Chimere's master, these two are going to need to be observed. But at the same time, I tend to wonder if there might be some good in Chimere, because when he was like, well, here's what we can do. I can wipe May's memory. When Osha decides to go back and train with Chimere, I was kind of surprised that he didn't just end May right there. But then Osha wouldn't have gone with him, and I see why he didn't do it. So I think he does care for both of them. And when he decides to, do basically a memory wipe on May, you've got that heartbreaking scene where the two twins are hugging because, they've just found each other. And here they have to say goodbye again. But it's... I did not expect that. I thought they might fuse back into one. They might fuse into one character, and you might have this fusion go off and train with Chimere, the dark side, possibly winning over the light. But I like that they kind of went this way. So you still have both twins out there. But you've got May not remembering anything. She doesn't remember her sister. She doesn't remember anything that happened after Chimere wipes her memory. They're trying to say the little rhyme there as he's wiping her memory, because they're trying to share one moment together, one final moment together before that happens. But then she's just confused and she doesn't remember anything there. I really like that scene a lot. So when you've got May having her memory wiped, it of course made me think of events from the Old Republic video games. We've seen this before in the expanded universe. So yeah, I liked that scene. I think May being brought to Coruscant and sitting before Vernestra, with no memory of what the heck happened, being all confused. I like how Vernestra summed this situation on Brendok up. Because, you have May, who vaguely remembers her mother being unalived by a man. And she says, yeah, the man who unalived your mother was a Jedi. He was my friend. He was a kind, brilliant, compassionate person. And he did a terrible thing. And, she's making no excuses for him. There is no pretty little bow to wrap around the events on Brendok. And I like that, even in spite of all this, Vernestra still does consider Sol to be her friend. Well, I say that. But yeah, this shady Jedi stuff, it definitely reminded me a bit of that from the Old Republic video game where Revan's memory was wiped. I really need to go back and watch those cutscenes again. And then you have that, one of the last scenes where Vernestra's basically having Soul bear the brunt of everything that happened on Brendok. You know, because she's bent on trying to find her pupil now. She wants to try and track him down. And, you know, she kind of has Soul take one for the team when she's, you know, telling the tribunal that, oh, yeah, Soul did a horrible thing on Brendok. There were a lot of casualties. And he eventually ended himself. I mean, that is true from a certain point of view. He didn't fight back when Osha was force choking him. But at the same time, I tend to find her actions, well, more than a little questionable here. But I can see why she's doing it, because she doesn't want the Jedi to be mired in, you know, doings with the Senate, mired in politics, things like that. She wants them to be able to continue to be as free as they can be, and to, you know, right all the galaxy's wrongs and all that stuff. But man, you know, this is a very cold move by Vernestra here. But I do see why she's doing it. And I think that, you know, in her mind, she believes it's the right thing to do, because this could, you know, spell a lot of damage, a lot of trouble for the Order here. But I don't like it very much. I don't think we're supposed to, of course. Yeah, what an interesting scene there toward the end of the episode. So you've got Vernestra now. She's wanting to track down Chimere, and she needs May's help. She does apologize for the Jedi failing these two twins. And I like that she tells her, hey, you know, Soul justified every selfish action with the love that he had for your sister. But at the same time, I tend to think that Vern's doing some real questionable stuff too. Know what I mean? So, and that is all we got. You have Vernestra ready to begin the hunt for her former pupil Chimere, and then you have the next to last scene where Osha and Chimere are back on, I'm going to call it Baldemnik until I hear otherwise. They're back on that planet. She's got Soul's saber now with a red kyber crystal because she bled it, and they're holding hands at the end of the episode, because you got to have a bit of romance here. And then you have Vernestra going to see Yoda. That's the last scene we get, where she goes into, I guess, possibly his private quarters, and you know, she decides to have a bit of a talk with him. So I'm wondering how much she's going to be speculating, how much she's going to reveal to him about what she suspects. As for a season 2, I would not mind a season 2 at all. This show has, well, it's gotten me rereading Darth Plagueis for the 6th or 7th time. I think I started a few weeks back, and I'm really enjoying rereading that book. Although with this new timeline of events, we are definitely in uncharted territory here. We're not sure what's going to be happening. I tend to think Plagueis is going to do both these kids in, though. I don't know, though. There's so much that I don't know. Hopefully the story's not going to continue in some comic that I can't read. I hope that it is either in live action or a novel on its own. That would be really cool if that's how they chose to continue it. Just please, no unreadable comic for me unless they do it with an audio adaptation as well. I did have a pretty good time with the show overall. I wish that the episodes had been longer, but I really loved what we got with episode 8. I had a pretty good time with this one. And yeah, hopefully we'll get a season 2 at some point. I don't know. They haven't said as to whether or not it's going to be renewed. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'll definitely be watching season 2 if we get it. I had a pretty good time with season 1. This video is sponsored by Damask Holdings. Come to us if you want your political campaigns funded with a fun bunch of moons. I mean munes. My screen reader pronounces it munes. It's munes! NVDA, for the last time, screwing up the way I pronounce my Star Wars words. Mune, M-U-U-N. With that, I'm going to send NVDA to bed with no supper. Probably take a lightsaber to it. Nah, we're cool, me and NVDA. I'll hear you guys in the next vid. May the Force be with you. Mune! Ya moron!